I'm Brad Schmidt here from Heartland Heritage Farms. Our farm's in Garvin, Minnesota. I live in Brookings, South Dakota right now, about an hour away from the family operation, so go back and forth and help out when it's possible and everything like that. So if you guys have any questions while we're going through everything, please raise your hand and let's discuss stuff when we're there. And I can always go back, it's not that big of a deal. But so who we are, we're a century farm. We had family, this year has been 100th year. The family operation. So my grandpa, there's him there. Like yesterday I was saying, he's 7 feet tall. He's actually about 5'2". So he is a dairy farmer, and then he had a back injury and had to have all that stuff go on. So then he is now quit doing the dairy, and now he's been 5 years no-till, cover crops. He's got cropland and cattle. And then my dad here, Chris, he used to be a carpenter. And he's the 6-year no-till. He's got cropland, sheep, and pigs. And then myself, like I said, I'm the head agronomist for Ducks Unlimited. And I got my bachelor's degree from South Dakota State University in agriculture science, and I'm the 6th generation coming back to the family farm. So we covered this yesterday, that soil is a foundation of life. And like yesterday again, I refer to this quote a lot from Gabe just because it keeps getting our minds thinking and how we can keep on improving things. And that's, if you want to make those small changes, you got to change the way you do things. And if you want to make those big changes, change the way we see things. So we're going to run through this here on what soil do you choose. We're trying to get a little crowd interaction here. So who chooses soil A? And who chooses soil B? So now why do you choose soil A? Yes, right? So we can clearly see that this is a healthier soil compared to this one. This is taken out of conventionally tilled soybeans in a neighboring place. And you can clearly see that there's nothing going on here. You can see how big that piece of dirt is compared to my hand. I couldn't even break that apart. Like I couldn't even snap it. It was so rock solid. And again, what soil do you choose? Have you all seen a rainfall simulator before? You've seen how water will run off and how water will infiltrate in different types of soil. It's pretty clear to see that you want a soil that infiltrates water compared to a soil that runs water off, because that's valuable to our crops or through our prairie systems or anything like that. And again here, we want a soil that's covered, right? So like I said yesterday, this is a fence line compared to our field, compared to our neighbors. We're live in the middle of the black desert of Minnesota is what it's called. It's everything's tilled up, everything is black, and even the winter it's black. The snow turns black. I call it snert because there's no soil cover to hold soil anywhere, so it just completely erodes. In Minnesota, on average in the fall, if you just do fall tillage, you'll lose about 7 tons of topsoil an acre because we always have wind blowing and everything else. So we want something that's going to hold our soil where it's at. Like I said, this is our first, it would be a year and a half into no-till here on the left and our neighbors on the right. And, we always get told that we can't do things here, but when we start applying these principles, you can pretty much do any of this stuff anywhere around the world. And it's hard to see, but you can see our corn rows coming up here that we planted into the soybean stubble. And they were planted the exact same day, but you can't even see the corn germinating in the conventional tilled soils. So what is soil health? It's the soil's ability to function as a vital living ecosystem. And basically what we have going on here is a prairie system. This is what agriculture is built on in the United States is Mother Nature and how Mother Nature functions and how we can continue to mimic that right now in our farming practices. So what we had to do on our operations, we had to unlearn what we thought we knew, and we had to relearn, which is a very tough task to do, especially for the later generations, right? It was easier for me to adopt these things just because I'm younger, but when you start talking to my grandpa and my dad, it's harder for them to adopt this stuff because of what they've been doing for so long. So the soil health principles: no tillage, soil armor, living root 24/7, 365, diversity, and livestock. And all of this is to mimic nature. Okay, and this is what we can do when we implement all of these principles. So this picture was taken about a year and a half ago. This was our 4th year into no-till and cover crops and kind of going down this regenerative agriculture path. And what we have here on the right is one of our no-till fields. It's been cover cropped. I mean, both these fields are treated the exact same. They've been cover cropped. They've been no-tilled. Everything the exact same. The one difference is that this one on the left had livestock put on it for 1 year. And that's the impact of livestock has on changing just soil, how much more carbon we can pump into that by increasing the livestock on there. So why did we change? Because this is the future, right? Not only on an agronomic standpoint, but we want to promote healthy soil. This is what we want to do. I seen that this is what we're doing in modern agriculture right now is not what the future is going to be, because that's why we always continue to run into these ruts that we have, right? I mean, the 80s we ran into the same rut again. I mean, we tried no-till then, but we didn't know then what we know now about it. So now this is, regenerative agriculture is what's going to carry ag into the future and completely change the entire paradigm that we're seeing right now in agriculture. And financial stability, right? The economics. All this makes sense. This is economic. From a business standpoint, everything here makes sense. From a conventional model of agriculture, there's not a lot that makes sense. There's not a lot of ROI that comes back to them, a lot of these things. And Mother Nature. We're concerned about the earth, we're concerned about the climate, and we're concerned about wildlife. And that's kind of, what leads into my job too with DU is that, all this stuff is important to Ducks Unlimited as well, because without all these things on top, we don't have this on the bottom. And we don't have a good earth, and we don't have a good climate. And then on top of that, this is my little brother here holding one of our turnips. This is another reason why we changed, because we want to continue to build this for the next generations to come. So how we started our stories a little bit different, more than a lot of people's. We didn't go through any real hardships that kind of pushed us down this path by any means, but it was so I was kind of going to college, and any 18-year-old, you have no idea what you want to do with your life. So I was working road construction, making a bunch of money and doing that, and trying to change majors 100 times, transfer different colleges and everything. So finally came across something. I was actually talking with Ashley's grandpa once. He said, "Oh, we got this thing called cover crops we're putting in, and we get paid for it by Equip." And I was like, "What the heck's a cover crop? Never even heard of such a thing before." So I started looking into it more, and I was like, "Hey, well, this is free feed for our sheep almost. They pay us to plant it. Why not? That's just silly." So then kind of got researching it more, found Gabe Brown on YouTube, just about like everybody else here. You see those videos, and I was like, I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, we got to watch this video. This is just amazing what they're doing, and we've been completely wrecking everything in the past. So how can we do this and implement this to change, because this is the future?" And my dad was kind of like, "Yeah, well, you know what? You're going to college. You're getting educated. I believe you. I don't think you're going to stab me in the back." And then we go to my grandpa, who is, you see my last name, it's Schmidt, right? It's German. It's very, very stubborn background. So bring it to my grandpa, and you can stick that where the sun don't shine, buddy. So it was the first year that we started. We took 10 acres of some of my dad's stuff, and we implemented these practices of no-till. We planted cover crops. And my grandpa's like, "I'm going to keep on doing my tillage. I'm going to keep on doing what I've been doing for years." Well, year goes by, we were like, "We're not going to help you pick rock. We're not going to help you do any of that other stuff that goes along with it." And after that fall of harvest, the yields were the exact same. And he's just like, cold turkey, just done like that. He's like, "All right, I'm done doing tillage then. I'm done," because that's one thing about our farmers and everything. It's we have to see things to really almost believe it, and that's that whole thing again from the beginning. You have to change your mind and how you think about things to completely change. So that's kind of how we started right away. And when I told my dad and my grandpa, I said, when we start this, we're going to be taking 10 steps ahead of everybody else, and everybody else will be taking 20 steps back, because we're keep on going. And I told him, it'd be 10 years before we'd really start seeing any huge benefits out of it. Year one, we've seen benefits already just because we were decreasing input costs. And now all of a sudden it's been 5.5, 6 years, and I would have never guessed we'd be on this, how far we are right now 5 years ago. I mean, it's mind-blowing. So the first thing we did, like I said, we stopped doing tillage, we planted covers, and we diversified. So we were a corn bean operation, and we had cattle, but like anybody else, we throw them out in the pasture for the entire summer and then start feeding hay in July and August because we don't have any grass anymore. So that diversity was very key for us because we started to spread out, risk and almost. I mean, diversity is a lot of risk management. So from raising those corn and beans, we started to integrate wheat and rye into our rotation. So one of our rotations, so I had the great opportunity in college to work with Dr. Dwayne Beck out of Dakota Lakes Research Farm in Pierce, South Dakota. And Dwayne is probably one of the best guys in the world for no-till. I mean, he's been doing it for 30 plus years, and he knows what he's doing. And like I said, I was very fortunate to work for Dwayne when I was in college. And he helped us kind of establish the rotation here. It's one that he uses. It's corn, bean, wheat, bean. And it doesn't necessarily have to be corn, doesn't have to be soybeans, doesn't have to be wheat. It could be a different type of warm season grass or a different type of legume or a different type of small grain. So it's one that we've incorporated on our operation just because it makes things easier. And plus with this, we're just starting to throw off pest cycles. We're starting to throw off weed cycles, everything like that goes along. So we're trying to mimic Mother Nature, but try to confuse her at the same time. So right now for livestock, we have about 25 cows, 300 ewes, and 9 sows. So I got the pigs this last year, is the first year we've had them, and they're absolutely amazing. Cover crops, this is a list of some of the cover crops that we've used. It's just a select few. We've experimented with hundreds. It's kind of phenomenal, and I wouldn't say I have a favorite by any means or have a select 5 that work, but we, like Gabe said too, we try to address that resource concern that we have and how we're going to continue to reach our goals in the future. So, this is a different presentation. We have our laziness, right? I mean, we as people are lazy by nature. I mean, we start to invent tools and we start to do all these different things because we don't want to do as much than we have to. I mean, we don't want to work as much as we have to. So we had to try to figure out, how do we start combating, how do we learn from this laziness that we had. Well, the one thing we forgot was how nature functions, and that's it was 100 years of forgetting how nature functioned, and we forgot where we came from. So like I said before, where these generations upon generations of, okay, well, this is how Grandpa did it, and this is how Great-Grandpa did it. Well, talking to my grandpa, hey, we're going to plant flax as a cover crop. Whoa, well, I remember planting flax, and we harvested as a grain. I was like, okay, well, my grandparents and my great-grandparents, they were diversified. They were doing a lot of these things, 50, 60 years ago. They were doing it. And we lost track of that because of, government subsidies, whatever else and whatnot. So we had to try to get back through and figure out how we're going to combat this laziness, right? We went over this yesterday and how we took something so simple and complex. It just I put the slide together and it just kind of made me smile and grin a little bit because it's such an easy thought process for me. We took a $1,500 animal and we've spent billions of dollars engineering what this $1,500 animal can do. And it's crazy to me. They're the planters, they're the harvesters, they hold all that stuff, they're a herbicide application, they're a fertilizer and a fertilizer spreader. And like I said, I don't know when the last time anybody sunk their teeth into a piece of iron. Doesn't matter if it's red, green, or blue. It does not taste as good as one of these right here. It just doesn't. And that's some of our steaks off of our beef animals. So we had to figure out how we can continue to press that easy button, but how do we continue to increase profit? Because that's what it is in agriculture right now. It's about profit. It's not about yield. Yeah, yield will help some, but you have to be able to make money. So how do we continue to increase that profit? Well, we're going to run through a little bit here of some commodities and economics, right? So the corn price in November 1980 was $3.81 a bushel. Okay? And the corn price in November of 2018, it was $3.60 a bushel. Now a combine in 1980 was $30,000. And a combine now, $489,000. So I mean, we're sitting here looking at this curve. I mean, whether it's herbicide or insecticides or it's fertilizer or equipment, it's been like this. But crop prices have continued to go like this. I mean, we had that jump, yeah, but that was one in how many years? I mean, it's been $7 for 2 years out of 100. I mean, you take that and you divide that down if you're going back into school math here, and that's failing. And there's a lot of things that we do in agriculture right now that it's 1 in 10. Okay, 1 in 10 years I got a crop out of that. Well, that's a failure. That is technically a failure. So why continue to fail when we continue to try to build things? So right now in agriculture we have low commodity prices, and that's making it tough to make money. Right? It's tough everywhere right now. It's not just in the United States. It's worldwide. This is tough times. But why is that? All right, we have been producing high yields. All right, and what does it take to get those high yields? More inputs. Okay, we hear it all the time. We've been hearing it for years that you have to put this more nitrogen on, put more phosphorus on, do this, do that, so you can get your higher yields. But, you know, what happens when we produce these high yields? We as farmers, we should realize this, that, you know, they're trying to sell us a product so we produce more, but really are we as producers, whether we're ag or whether on on the crop side or we're on the livestock side, or do we keep shooting ourselves in the foot by trying to produce more and more and more? You know, if we would produce 100 bushel corn again, it'd be $7. But who wants to do that? Right? We've set records of yield in corn, beans, and wheat for the past couple years. I mean, this is fantastic, right? We're the best producers in the world. This is great. Pat ourselves in the back. We've done some great work. But like I said, we are continuing to shoot ourselves in the foot with this. This is the first thing you learn in any economics class, that you go to college, you go to high school. This is the first thing they teach you, supply and demand. This is simple, right? So we have our supply curve here, and we continue to produce more, so our supply curve keeps on shifting. Well, we have our price here, and we have our quantity. Well, when we have more supply, we have more quantity. So what happens? Price continues to go down. And we continue to keep on pushing along this path because we're trying to produce more and more and more and more and more. Because why? Because we have to feed the world. I mean, that's what we're told. We as farmers, we feed the world. So rather than trying to feed the world, do we take that avenue of, okay, well, if we teach a man to fish, we're going to feed him for a lifetime, rather than just giving him something. There's a lot of the African countries and everything like that, they're starting to go down this path of regenerative ag because they can produce more for themselves than we can ship into them. And I don't remember the last time any of us have sat down to a plate of corn and soybeans. I know I haven't. Okay, there's a lot of things we need to fix. So where we started is right here. So my dad, like I said, my dad was a carpenter. My grandpa worked with my dad building houses and everything like that. I grew up doing carpentry work as well. And we started with 120 acres. So it was right on the home quarter. We did tillage on 100% of it. Our fertilizer we were applying because that's 170 pounds, our yield goals, or whatever would have you. We wanted to get 170 bushel corn. Well, it's 1-to-1, right? That's what we're always told. So we have to produce, we have to put on 170 pounds of nitrogen to reach that. Then for our soybeans, we put on 35 pounds of P and K because we were like, well, 35 bushel beans, that's pretty good. Everybody else seems to be getting it, so whatever. Hybrid varieties, we're paying latest and greatest technology. It's $425 a bag for seed. That's right now. I sit there and think back on that. I'm just like, what were we thinking? Just crazy. Where's the profitability there? Herbicides, 5 to 6 chemicals. We're spraying Roundup, we're spraying Liberty, we're doing all this other stuff because we have this weed out there that's affecting our crops, right? It's detrimental. Insecticides, my grandpa never believed in using insecticide. He always liked having the bugs around. Always thought it was something that he didn't want to do. Now, when I was being educated as a college student and then working for a local consulting company, they were like, oh, well, we need to scout for aphids and we got to do all this stuff in beans and all that. So the threshold is 200 bugs per plant. And now we got to go out there and we got to spray it. Okay, now you're adding a $15, an acre application onto that. And I told my grandpa, well, maybe we should look into doing this. But this is before I knew anything about regenerative ag, and he threw that in my face too, which I'm glad he did, because that really, I look back at that now and I'm just like, how dumb, just how stupid. I mean, I got trapped, started getting sucked down into that paradigm, right? And our yields were respective to what we were doing. I mean, it was. We had 170 bushel corn and we had 35 bushel beans, and my grandpa was happy with those yields. They were fantastic for him. So where we started on our own land, like I said, and then also we had some local Minnesota DNR land that they had for, it was like 100 acres or so that we were farming. So what they kind of did was they put everybody's local people's name in a hat, and they drew one out, and that's who got to farm it. Well, it was 5-10 years down the line, and we went to the DNR and we said, hey, we got this new stuff we want to try. We want to try to implement these types of practices. And they're like, wow, this sounds pretty good. The wildlife's going to benefit, our soil's going to get better, everything like that. So it's been 5.5 years now that we've been farming that as well. And now through what we've been doing with them on that DNR land, the state of Minnesota has made it mandatory on all their Minnesota DNR land that it has to be no-till and it has to be cover crop, which is it's just phenomenal. So this is what we started with. I mean, I'm not ashamed to show this, because you have to show where you started, and this is where we started. You can see that it's gray or tan. It's not even dark. You can see there's no life there. We had a huge learning curve. How did we figure out how to do this? And the one thing we had to learn, that there's no one way to do things, right? There's no recipe book to follow, on how to continue to do things in our operation, because we're trying to learn from Gabe and what he was doing, trying to learn from David Brandt, trying to learn from Dwayne. I mean, there's different things that they do that we can try to implement, but how do we get that to succeed on our farm? Well, like I said, this is where we started. We had the comparison of conventional till and our no-till and cover crop. So what we did is, for our no-till stuff, we planted cereal rye ahead of corn, and evidently that's a big no-no for a lot of people. Never plant cereal rye ahead of corn, because you got alleliopathy and you have all this stuff. We've never seen it. Never seen it. And I swear by it. You can come out to our farm. We still do it today. Never seen it. Now what cereal rye does, it's a huge scavenger for nitrogen. It won't kill the corn, but it'll scavenge a lot of nitrogen from it. So yes, it's something you have to be aware of, but we've never seen it. And this is my grandpa's here. So another thing they're kind of hard to see with these smaller pictures, but what do you see here going in between these conventional tilled corn rows? There's weeds. Weeds. Weeds are Mother Nature's way of covering the soil, of having a living root 24/7, 365. That is Mother Nature's way. That's why we have weeds. You walk into a native grassland, how often do you see water hemp? Where do you see pigweed? Where do you see Palmer amaranth? You don't see it. You don't see it. The seed is there, but as soon as you go through and you till that soil up, what comes up? All those weed seeds do, right? Do you see any weed seeds in here, in the cover crop spot? We had, the weed pressure was phenomenal. These were planted on the same day, and the corn in that cover crop was it was ahead of the stuff in the conventional till the entire time. And now we know that because we had water holding capacity, and we had aggregation, we had worms, and we had microbes, we had all that stuff. We didn't know that then, but we knew it was pretty cool. And your success is not always what you see. Now remember this when you're working with cover crops, because there's many times where you see a cover crop, it looks spindly, it doesn't look that good on top, but it looks pretty good down below. And all the stuff we were talking about earlier today with all the microbes and stuff, that's what they like. They like that right there. Okay, and right now in agriculture, we're all concerned about this, the green stuff on top. But you don't get paid in the green stuff in the fall that you bring in, right? You don't get paid in that. You get paid in the stuff that you produce. So we need to shift our whole mindset. It's not always what we see up there, all right? There's more things going on. So like I said, where we started here, so like I said, there's our cover crop there. And then we started off cheap, easy. Dad always told me this all the time growing up. He's very, very blunt, sarcastic, but he always told me to kiss, right? Keep it simple, stupid. I still live by that yet today. Keep it simple. Okay, this is not a complicated process to start and go down this road. This is very, very easy. Keep it within your pocketbooks. Okay, don't go out there and buy the latest and greatest equipment. If you have the money to do it, great. If you want to, fine. I'm not going to hold you against it. But work with what you have. So what we did is we went and bought a $1,500, spinner, cone spinner from Runnings. And that's what we hooked up as a 3-point on the back of our tractor run by the PTO, and that's how we spread our cover crop seed. Very easy, efficient. So we went out there our first year, and we spread our cover crop seed. It was about V4 to V6, just cruising up and down the row, spreading cover crop seed. And that's what it looked like in the fall. And we were like, whoo-hoo, we got it going now. Look at that cover crop, right? Taking pictures because it's our first year. We're like, look at that. Taking bites of the turnips, and they're tart. It's a different flavor. But then we get into the wintertime, and we're like, holy cow, our first year, we want that living root 24/7, 365. Look at what we're doing. Holy smokes, we got green stuff in the middle of winter. Never seen this before. God, we are doing good. We're catching the neighbor's soil blowing onto our stuff. Awesome. But little did we know that the next spring, because you can see all the snow that we had here. That snow, created just a blanket effect. It was like an insulator for all of our cover crops growing. So they never died throughout the winter. They didn't die. The soil didn't get cold. It was still warm compared to a conventional till system. So the stuff that we grazed with our cattle in the fall, all that stuff kind of, pittered out, and it didn't come back the next spring. But we had fields that came back. Turnips were growing, and we were like, gosh, we're still doing so good. We had stuff survive the winter. We have the living roots all the time. We're building soil. Fantastic. Then we get to planting time, and turnips are going to seed, radishes are going to seed, rye's going like crazy, clover's going like crazy, and it was a mess. But then that's how we realized that's not a one-way fits all. So we put the same mix on everything, and that's not how to go about it. We didn't address our resource concern right away. So now we know that we're not going to put these types of plants or cover crops in something that we're not going to probably graze because it's going to probably survive. So now, where we are now. So we started in 2013, now 2018. We went from 120 acres to 600. We went from 100% tillage to 0. Now, I don't know how much it costs here in California, but in Minnesota, South Dakota, if you're going to do tillage 1 or 2 times a year, it's going to cost you about $35, $40 an acre. Now, if you're on a huge operation, about 5,000 acres, which is fairly normal when you're starting to get into South Dakota and Minnesota, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars for your operation. And where's that ROI? How often do you see an ROI calculation in a magazine that's selling a piece of tillage equipment? It's not there. There's no return on that investment. Fertilizer, we started to decrease that because we started running the Haney soil tests, PLFA tests, everything like that. We're trying to see what our biological activity is going on in the soil, what we have there that's organic and inorganic, what's going to become available to the plant, what are we building, what are the microbes cycling, everything like that. So what we do, we started to decrease on our fertilizer, and we're continuing to try to wean off of that because we don't want to, like Gabe says, we don't want to sign the fronts of the checks. We want to sign the backs. So we decreased to 100 pounds of N, and we're starting to decrease that now. Our soil test came back and showed that we need 80, but we were like, well, we're going to put on 100 just in case. No P and K, went from hybrid varieties to conventional seed. Now, like I said before, those hybrid varieties, you're talking $425 a bag of seed. Now you go down to conventional at $125 a bag. More money in my pocket. That's just more money in my pocket. Herbicides, 1 to 3, we're trying to get away from herbicides. All this stuff that we're learning from Dr. Zach Bush and how Dr. Miller today talked about all this kind of stuff and how human health is incorporated in everything. We're trying to wean off of this stuff because we realize that for our human health, we have to kind of get away from these things so we can produce high nutrient-dense food, because that's really what we're trying to do with regenerative agriculture, is not only mimic nature, but produce that good food. Insecticides, we're still at 0. Fungicides, on the wheat and that kind of stuff, we're still doing it. We're trying, like I said, we're trying to get away from using all this stuff because we know that if we keep on doing these things, it's a detriment to our soil, it's a detriment to our microbiology, and we can continue to build and keep on going. Now here are yields. Now, from a university standpoint, if I decrease my nitrogen inputs, I'm supposed to lose yield. I'm supposed to lose yield. But we went up to a 200 bushel average. My grandpa had never seen 200 bushel corn before, never had seen it. Our soybean yields, they're supposed to go down. There's no way in heck you can raise soybeans without fertilizing them. It's impossible. You can't do it. Went up to 65 on average. All right. We did this by implementing these practices. You can do this on your operation. It works everywhere. It works everywhere. Now, rented land. Right. This is an interesting subject that a lot of people talk about, and they're like, well, I can't do it because I rent land, right? And I can't, my landowner, he doesn't like these new practices and doesn't like all that kind of stuff. Well, when we rent a house, you want your tenant to take care of that, right? Because that is yours, and you want to continue to rent that out and make money off of that, right? This is an investment for you as a landowner. It's an investment for you as anybody. Well, what happens when you come to a house like this? You're like, oh man, it's destroyed. When you come back to a house like this, it's still put together, it's looking nice, they kept it up. We're always told, as people, we want to leave things better than what we found them. Always, all the time, right? What's the difference? What is the difference? If you're a landowner, do you want to continue to deplete that resource? Do you want to continue to lose stuff that you're on there? Okay, work with tenants, work with the people, if you're renting land, talk to them about this, because this is extremely important. We want to regenerate this soil. We're trying to grow it, produce more. Okay, increase the value of that land, because we can do that by doing regenerative ag. So where is the future? Is it organic? Is it regenerative organic? Grass-fed? Where is it? But the one thing I know is that we've traded our health for convenience. Okay? This is our future in agriculture. All right? We have young people, they're always on their phones. Right? We always complain about all the time, people are on their phones all the time. But it's an educated consumer, a very educated consumer. Whether you believe it or not, they want what they want, and they want it for a reason. And quite honestly, it's one that we need to go along with and continue to produce that for them, because we may think they're crazy at times, but at a certain point they're right. They are right. So we had to make big changes. We had to increase revenue streams on our farm through diversity. Okay, we had to diversify. So we started our direct marketing business of Heartland Heritage Farms Incorporated. So we now direct markets all of our meat to consumers. direct to consumer. We use the Graze Cart platform created through Seven Sons. They're absolutely phenomenal. This platform is everybody in regenerative ag going down this path. So it's a tight-knit network. The people at Grateful Graze, they're doing the same stuff. It's you go back and forth trying to help each other and learn from each other. And our farm became Minnesota Water Quality Certified, and we are also certified with Minnesota Grown. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our livestock. So this year is pigs. I have a lot on pigs because it's new to our stuff, and they're just awesome. So they're cool. This last spring, we bought a batch of Berkshires, and we got some barrows, and we got some gilts in there. So we're like, well, we want to get these out here and graze them, because what we have in our sheep pastures in the winter, we got dry lots, feeding ewes and stuff in the winter before we're getting ready for breeding and shearing and lambing and all that kind of stuff. So this is our pigs out there. What we did, we just put together a little hut. Doesn't have to be expensive. Keep it simple, stupid, right? This is pallets and a piece of tin. Screw it together. But I'm going to tell you, pigs, they're intriguing creatures, and they'll tear it apart. But there's my brother laying in with the pigs. This is something that you don't get when you walk into a confinement facility. I do not know why people do not raise pigs like this. This is the funnest thing ever. I mean, they are such a fun creature. Everybody should raise pigs, because if you like dogs, if you're a dog person, or if you like cats and you're a cat person, you'll like pigs, because they're all of them put together. I mean, they're just a fun creature. And we had our first farrowing on the farm in 40 years. So like I said before, my grandpa and my great-grandpa, they had all this stuff before, but they got away from it because, well, we want to hit that easy button, but even though we're doing more work. So like I said, first farrowing in 40 years. This was pretty cool and pretty exciting for us. We were pretty jacked up because we bought a couple sows that were bred, and we wanted to do this. So what we did was, like I said again, we kept it simple. We took an old silage wagon, took the axles off, flipped it up on top on the end, and that's the hut. That's where they went in and farrowed. It's easy. I mean, that was take the skid loader, flip it over, there we go, fill it with straw, they're in there, okay? And then we got, more diversity here even. So what we did is we want to stick with the, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but you want to stick with the heritage breeds, the heritage breed pork, okay? Because all the stuff that's in confinement is not necessarily a heritage, and they're not going to adapt to being out on pasture or rooting around or whatever like a pig does. So, whoops. Okay, so here, this is what our dry lots look like after we got our sheep out there in the wintertime. I mean, it piles up with hay and all that stuff that they don't eat, or they pull out and it falls down, and all that stuff that we deal with in the wintertime up in Minnesota. So we thought, well, let's run our pigs on there. Get them through there, get it stirred up, get it composting, all that kind of stuff. Well, you see the difference here? That's what it looked like before, and that's after. Just run some pigs through there. It was easy. It's feed for them. They loved it. I mean, it's cheap for us. I mean, it was so easy. There's my brother with the pigs again now. Like I said, this is our first year with pigs, and you can see what pigs do. All right, so we're still learning on how to control these pigs and how we're going to continue to move them across so we don't have this problem here, or how we can change this problem of having that much disturbed soil. And like I said, these are kind of our dry lots, so we're not terribly concerned about it right now, but it's something that we need to address in the future so we don't continue to have that bare soil. But this is how we were holding them in. On the outside, we had a woven wire here, and then on the inside, we were training them to electric fence, just one strand polywire electric fence, about a foot off the bottom. They got skin just like we do. They hit it, they yelp and bark, whatever, and they'll stay away from it. They honor it pretty good. Then we take it up, and they went to grazing immediately. We let them through there. They went to grazing. They're eating grass. They're picking through it. They're having fun out in the water. It's a hot day. I mean, you got to make this kind of stuff available to pigs. They don't sweat, so pigs in the summertime, they'll look dirty almost. I mean, they cover themselves. It's their sunscreen. But they're grazing. Gosh, they just loved it. So like I said, we got to figure out how we got to continue to graze them instead of rather having them rutting around. Remember when I said how friendly they were? I mean, we walk in the pen with them, right now in the wintertime, and they come up to you and they're rooting at your leg and trying to get you to pet them, and they'll rub their butt on you, all that kind of stuff, and they're just a funny creature. But you can see how good they clean up. Those girls clean up pretty good once it started getting to the wintertime. And my dad sent me this picture here the other day, and I thought it was pretty funny. So those little piglets that we had, well, they're pretty crafty little creatures. They get out, and now we're winter grazing pigs. We're winter grazing them. And it's funny because they get in the pens with the sheep, and the sheep are all looking at them like, what the heck is that thing? And they chase them around. It's kind of funny. But that's what our pork looks like. We got to butcher one, and I don't know about you, but I have never seen a pork chop look like that. I mean, with the marbling and everything in there like that, I mean, it's beautiful and cheap. Oh, so cheap. Now sheep, so some of our ewes out on our pasture here in the summertime, and they're some of our lambs here in the winter. Now you see a lot of our sheep have wool on them, so we started off. We're in a lamb and wool program out of Minnesota. We've never been ones to kind of follow along that conventional system. So what they're pushing is, big ewes and big rams and big tall legs and all this kind of stuff. Well, we don't believe in that because, when's the last time you got paid from here down when taking in a carcass, right? You don't get paid from here down. So if you have a tall critter, it doesn't matter. So we started going to short, stocky, almost looking like little steers almost. I mean, they're just stocky little sheep. So what we did was we went and bought a couple of Katahdin rams. So we're starting to kind of breed this. We're breeding the hair sheep back into our wool. So we can, in 3 years, we'll have all that wool out and we'll be all hair sheep, which we're excited about because if you've ever sheared before, it's not any fun. I mean, it's not. You talk about work. It's work. It's work shearing sheep and back breaking labor, all that kind of stuff. Along with the hair sheep, we start to get parasite resistance, and they're a meat breed, so we're going to continue to build that in. Plus, all right, nobody take this idea, okay? I'm trying to patent this right now. All right, this is I just joke with my dad and my grandpa about it all the time because my grandpa doesn't like the sheep very much, but Dad loves them. So, and our lamb, gosh, our lamb tastes good too. You go to a restaurant and you order sheep, and a lot of people they taste it and they're just like, gosh, it don't taste very good, but you're not getting the fresh stuff. Get the stuff from your locally grown producer. Okay, get that fresh lamb, and it is good. It is good. We smoked up a leg of lamb and pretty tasty. Now our cattle. So my grandpa is on the accelerated breeding program. If anybody knows what that is, it's you leave the bull in the pasture 24/7, 365, right? So we got to try to change that up a little bit too. But we got all sorts of different types of cows here, and we love our cattle. But trying to change things up in the livestock too, or in our cattle operation. And like I said, our beef it's good. It's good. We're excited because we got, everything pretty much grades prime, which it is not yet. So that's what I want to get to. I want to get to grass finish and stuff, and that, which very well could be as to why we have higher marbling, is because we're feeding a little bit of grain. But I want to get away from kind of feeding that grain and get to that grass finish. I don't know if it's our genetics is why we have this, because it's been going on for a long time, but I'm not sure yet. And it's something I talked with Gabe about, and I talked with Alan about too, and trying to figure out if this is going to continue. If we lose some, whatever, it's still going to taste good. So the future for us is diversity. Okay, so we're going to continue. We gotta implement rotational grazing with our cattle, sheep, pigs. We want to get chickens in on the operation too, and how we can rotate them through and continue to make money. Polycropping, avoiding monocultures, interseeding cover crops, full season grazing covers. Changing birthing dates on our livestock, and then changing breeds and culling. Like I said a little bit, we're trying to change a little bit on our sheep and everything, but I'll run through it a little bit here. So rotational grazing. So we want to do just temporary fence grazing. If we can put up a good perimeter fence of high tensile and we run poly wire in between and daily moves or whatever on our livestock, that's going to be better for the soil. It's going to be better for our pastures. Now, I stole this idea from you guys at Grateful Graze because I thought this is just genius. I love this. How many of these tanks we got sitting around? It's so smart. Loved it. Easy to pull around, lightweight, fill it with water, drain it quick, simple. Then I was at Seven Sons here this summer, and running electric netting with pigs and running it with sheep, and maybe that's a different way that we can graze sheep easier, because if you've ever been around sheep before, if one gets out, they're all out, and they're something else. And then Joel Salatin's model here with the chicken tractors. This is kind of something we're wanting to toy with a little bit too, is how to rotational graze chickens. And then polycropping. A lot of people are at Jason's talk right now. I stole this picture from Jason, but I believe if we're going to start going down no-till organic and all this kind of stuff, this is going to be the stuff of the future, is polycropping. It's not going to be a monoculture in the field, because that's not how nature was. We talked about yesterday of having 7+ species. There's people doing that in Canada right now and other places of, we're growing everything out there, and then we're combining it at once and then separating it out, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's one thing that's going to really push us into the future. And like I said here, for our pig feed, oats, barley, peas, flax, and lentils, we're going to plant some of that, and then that's going to be some of our substitute feed for our pigs. Beans and small grains like Jason's doing. this is some cool stuff. It's that whole thing of flipping modern agriculture on its head, because what we thought we've known is just, it's completely different. We don't know the first thing about agriculture. We don't know anything about ag. It's crazy what keeps on going on. Corn with 60-inch rows, and then we want to do all this so we can capture more carbon, right? Interseeding cover crops. This is kind of a thing that's a lot more people kind of are messing with it in the warmer climates, but we're trying to do it a little more up in our colder climates as well, because we want to be able to graze livestock in the wintertime. We want to graze livestock when it's not, good for people to be out almost. I mean, it gets cold, so. But that's something we want to toy with a little more, cycle more nutrients, go back and forth. So we want to plant something here that's going to feed the corn crop, or whether it's beans or anything else in there. We want to get that flow going of microbes and everything in the soil. Full season covers. I truly believe this is the way to go. If you have cattle, or if you're trying to regenerate a system fast, do these. I mean, you're talking 14 plus species in the mix. We're talking about microbes feeding it back and forth to each other, building soil structure, building aggregates, getting worms involved. I mean, this is the way to go to rebuild soil, is these full season covers. I mean, guys are doing it all over the place, and they're making a lot of money on it. There's worked with a guy here out in South Dakota, and he's got pasture land, but he's like, if I had more crop ground, he's like, I would be doing this full time. He's like, I wouldn't even raise a catch crop. I would just graze livestock on full season covers. And that's what they look like in the wintertime after it's done grazing. So that's the same field right here and right here. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's my spade shovel right there. There's the handle of it, and that's how tall that sorghum Sudan grass was. But that whole thing that we've always been talking about, that skin that's on the soil surface, that's what we want. We want that soil cover, and you can see how a lot of those stems are still standing. We're able to catch that extra snow coming through. We're able to capture that moisture and hold it there for the next crops or whatever that's coming in there. Changing birthing dates. So, we're, like I said, our cattle are on the accelerated breeding program. We got to fix that. Okay, nature doesn't, if nature had a calf, if a buffalo had a calf in January, it ain't gonna make it. It just ain't. Nature has babies when it's good to have babies, and that's what we need to mimic in all of our operations here. I mean, this is something we're changing. So this will be our first year taking some sheep and lambing them on pasture. So we're avoiding a lot of issues having them in barns and that kind of stuff in the wintertime. Plus, it's way easier on us. We don't have to be up in the wee hours of the night having lambs. Yep. Like coyotes or predators. Yeah. So we're gonna try to lamb in like late May, June. So hopefully by that time, I mean, hopefully we don't deal with any snow in late May or June. Yeah. Yep. And we see that in nature all the time, right? I mean, deer, they're born in May, and they're pretty big by the time fall comes around. Changing breeds. So some of our, like I talked about the sheep already, but some of our cattle are pretty big. I mean, that's what we were always told in livestock. We got to produce a big weaning calf, and we got to produce a huge market or a huge animal that's going to go to market. And we're always trying to, but where's the profit in that? Where's the profit? So we're going to try to continue to work down to a smaller framed animal, so it's less inputs for us. It finishes faster. I mean, it's more profitable. So trying to move to like a 1,200 pound animal or something like that. Now, management. I got this here off of dictionary.com. This is the definition of management: the act or manner of managing, handling, direction, or control. Where in management does it say more work? Right? Because when we talk with people all the time, it's, okay, well, you want me to do regenerative ag stuff, but holy smokes, do I got more work. And it's just like, really? More work? No, it's brain work. You got to think differently. It's all up here. It's all about thinking differently. So it's more brain work. It's not manual labor. Yeah, you might have a little more stuff in there, but it's good exercise. So education. one thing I can't stress enough is to never stop learning. I mean, like I said, we don't know anything about agriculture. We don't have the answers of anything. I don't know everything. Gabe doesn't know everything. I mean, people, you don't know everything. All right. We're lucky. I did not know actually that they were going to give this book out here. So this is a nice little plug again. But if you ever get the chance, I mean, read this book. You all have it now. So read it. I mean, it is a great read. It only took me like 6 hours to buzz through it, and I'm a slow reader. So. Yes, it's true. Yeah, if you want to hear Gabe's voice, he reads it to you. It's and then the Soil Owner's Manual. That's a short read. That is a short read. I think it's like 70 pages or 100 pages or something like that. It's quick, and it gives you that guidance on how to kind of manage soil a little bit differently. And ask questions. I mean, that's the best thing about going down this regenerative ag path is everybody is willing to answer. Okay, they're willing to share secrets and everything. It's not even a secret because it's stuff we've known for hundreds of years. It's just a matter of we're starting to figure out how to do things a little bit differently now. All right? Ask the questions. And then read. I mean, like I said, never stop learning goes along with reading. Read as much as you can. I mean, you're like I don't have my phone on me, but we got the phones. There's so much information on those things. Start reading. Listen to podcasts. I mean, you're driving vehicles all the time. Put something on the radio or putting something on there. Keep learning, and diversify. And by this diversity here, it's an educational diversity. Go to listen to somebody that you've never listened before. Talk with people you never talked to before. Diversity doesn't always mean something that you got to change on your farm. It can be diversity in your head, diversity in your heart, whatever. Change the way you think about things. Change the way you see things. Right? And I like this quote here. I seen it on Facebook, and I had to share it for Steve Jobs. Right? So here's the herd quitters, the crazy ones, the rebels and the troublemakers, the square pegs in a world full of round holes. They see things differently. Right? They see things differently. They have no respect for the status quo. They make things happen. If it weren't for the herd quitters, the earth would still be flat. While some call them crazy, we see genius. Those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do it. Dare to be different and dare to be a herd quitter. So I have been able to learn and be with a lot of herd quitters. Okay? I got to learn, like I said, from Dr. Beck. I mean, he's a phenomenal man. These four crazy guys here, I mean, you guys have all heard of them. I mean, Gabe was here, Alan, Ray, and David Brandt. Just a bunch of we're all crazy people. We're all nuts. Dr. Don Rakowski, he's a retired soil scientist. Got connected with Don on Facebook because I can't keep my mouth shut about all this soil stuff. So got connected with him. Got to work with Dan Forgy out in Gettysburg, South Dakota. Worked with Cronin Farms. Joel Salton, I've never met Joel before, but I think I've watched every single YouTube video that Joel has on YouTube because he's from his TED Talks to his podcast and everything like that, the man he's a thinker, and he makes me think, and I like that. Chris Nichols, you want to talk about a soil microbiology genius and mycorrhizal fungi, Dr. Chris Nichols, she's awesome. And then John Lundgren. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that gets you fired up and ready to do something for regenerative ag, John will do that. He will do that. And he's one of the best entomologists in the world. So, and he's here at the conference. Like I said, that learning thing, learn from John. And then Seven Sons, like I said, our operation wouldn't be where it is right now without our direct marketing stuff. And with Seven Sons, we've been able to do that and try to model how they're kind of doing things. And there's a list of more people on here than I could have had 10 slides worth of people. But this is just some of those herd quitters, like I said. And like I said before, it's been 7 years with this girl, and she puts up with me talking about soil and stuff all the time, and she gets real sick of it. And it's actually funny because we start talking to people, she starts talking about it. So I'm like, get pretty proud. I'm like, yeah, that's right. She's been listening. But yeah, so I got to thank her for everything that she's put up with me for the past 7 years, and that's can't wait for the future. So thank you guys, and like I said, any questions, feel free to ask. Check us out on our farm on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. I mean, I don't post as much as some of the other people, but I still post crazy stuff. You can check out our website, and then here's our contact info at the bottom for myself and my dad's. So thank you very much.